So you as a jury here, I'm going to Richard Feynman, a professor and physicist and also Manhattan Project scientist, and he says, I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers which can't be questioned. So I'm going to propose two theories here. We're going to discuss the first one heavily here, and it is, the first theory addresses the unanswered question A.R. first penned September 2nd, 1946. Her handwriting here. Who is John Galt? The one that's addressed later is the working theory for a later presentation. If he is John Galt and he had a unique piece of equipment, what happened to it? That's part two. It's up to each of you to weigh my evidence and conclude that my theory is feasible or flawed. Before I present my first theory, the evidence to support that the Manhattan Project scientist and professor Dr. Freeman will remind us the rules of theory.
Situation. Now I'm going to discuss how we would look for a new law. In general, we look for a new law by the following process. First, we guess it. Then we don't laugh, that's really true. Then we compute the consequences of the guess to see what, if this is right, if this law that we guessed is right, we see what it would imply, and then we compare those computation results to nature, or we say compare to experiment or experience, compare it directly with observation to see if it works. If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. In that simple statement is the key to science. It doesn't make a difference how beautiful your guess is, it doesn't make a difference how smart you are who made the guess, or what his name is. If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. That's all there is to it.
And so we'll continue from that. So let's get to the theory. My theory is, in part one here, due to my extensive knowledge of the Manhattan Project making of the atomic bomb during World War II, including the scientists that worked on it, my working theory is that many of the Atlas Shrugged general themes and characters, including John Galt, were extracted and then camouflaged from the real life setting so not to infringe on an atomic bomb movie being made by MGM that was titled, Is This the Beginning or Is It the End? Because Ayn Rand was halfway through a screenplay. Well, we'll get into that a little bit. So if my theory is determined to be flawed, the Manhattan Project scientists who came up with the concept of a light water nuclear reactor in 43, the thorium reactor, the molten salt reactor around 48, if my theory is not flawed, then I think I know who John Galt is. And by the end of this trial, we'll see if there's any agreement within the group. Now, I want to mention, many people for 58 years have been asking since those first 4 words, who is John Galt? Many people have passed the Ayn Rand road, which is looking at a fictional scenario. I came from a different path. I'm researching a scientist who we've discovered had a phenomenal piece of technology that got buried. And I was following his trail over here. As Robert Frost said about the 2 roads, I took the one less traveled, and maybe it made all the difference. Because as I'm researching this gentleman, I'm finding out in the archives, to my surprise, that there's a video on him when he was 69 years old before he passes in another 10 years. Someone wanted a video of his life. And I found it on the computer, and I'm watching it after just watching an Ayn Rand in her own words, and started to notice some similarities. And he starts when he's about 12 in Chicago, and it goes on from there, where his father was good at, he was a mechanic, mechanically minded. He went to college at 16, broke, majored in physics, and they started a new program at the University of Chicago, where all the engineers had to take philosophy as a major too. All these things that Ayn Rand, so it keeps me thinking, okay, here's where I postulated my theory on. So I'm starting to wonder, is there a non-fictional side to Atlas Shrugged? Theory is proclaimed. Recognizing I initially knew very little about Ayn Rand, I began an in-depth research to discover the following. Well, she wasn't a physicist, she was a historian. Spoke 3 languages prior to coming over here, but did not speak English, so she's having to cram on that, right? So, in her own words, I'm finding out, well, that's a black dot against my theory. Upon entering the U.S., Alicia Rosenbaum spent 6 months in Chicago with her cousins, tight-knit Jewish neighborhood, Hyde Park Boulevard. That was in 1926. Now, the Manhattan Project didn't start until 1930. That's 13 years later. Okay. My theory is starting to get a little shaky. Having arrived in Hollywood in late 26, Ayn Rand is working on the book The Fountainhead between 33 and 44. She spent her time learning about building design and construction for a novel, not physics of splitting an atom and blowing up cities. So, again, it's looking more shaky. And I have the dilemma, too, that between 1939 and 1945, everything associated with the atomic bomb, including Manhattan scientists, have now become top secret. They're squirreled away. No one can get to them. They're working on this quietly. And she's going to be starting her book April 1st, 1946. That's when she's on her own time again. Wow, shoot, that's not good. That means I only have a window left of 9 months. How could, though she's brilliant, 9 months to get to know all the Manhattan Project scientists, understand the science, and use it in her play. So things are not looking good right now. So if we were to pause or stop here, I'm afraid lack of evidence, you've wasted your time here. Yes?
Just during that 9-month period, she was reportedly writing a screenplay.
And we get into that. Because the theory is not very promising at this point, but is it time to thrash the theory? And fortunately, I started looking over that 9-month period, and I went to